Living in a time when democracy is more at risk across the world than any point since the end of World War II. Democracy is never guaranteed. Every generation must preserve it, defend it, and fight for it. That's the test of the ages. In memory of those who fought here, died here, literally saved the world here. Let us be worthy of their sacrifice.
Joining me right now is Stevens Inc. Executive Vice President and Senior Policy Advisor. She is former Senior Advisor to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mary Kissel back with us. Mary, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for joining me. Your reaction to what we're hearing from President Biden this morning with regard to Ukraine?
Well, President Biden is right. Democracy is at stake, but not for the reasons that I think he intends. He's trying, I think, to send a domestic political message to his base back home. But abroad, where he's standing, there are two land wars going on not so far away. And unfortunately, the president, because he's allowed U.S. deterrence to erode, because he's given succor to our enemies, you see our enemies deterring us. And you see that careful, hesitant approach to Ukraine and to helping them, repel Putin hasn't worked. You saw him try to dull Israel's attempts to eradicate terror. You haven't seen him do anything about the Islamic Republic of Iran's sales of energy. You've seen China push them around. I mean, yeah, democracy is at stake because we're doing very little to preserve it. It's not just about rhetoric, Maria. It has to be about action.
Yeah, for sure. It's all politics, even while he's there. Meanwhile, you've got the leader of Hamas claiming to hold firm on his ceasefire demands. Apparently, he told Arab negotiators that Hamas would only accept a deal if Israel commits to a permanent pause in fighting, Mary. The leaders of 17 countries, including the United States, issued a joint statement calling on Israel and Hamas to, quote, make whatever final compromises are necessary to close the deal and end this war. All of this happening while Hezbollah says it's ready to fight Israel in Lebanon. Axios is reporting that the U.S. is warning Israel a, quote, limited war with Lebanon could draw Iran to intervene. Give us your take on all of this, Mary.
Well, we're already encouraging Iran to intervene because we didn't punish them when Iran set a precedent of launching missiles into Israel from Iranian territory. We haven't imposed secondary sanctions. There have been no snapback sanctions at the United Nations. We haven't tried to curb, as I said earlier, Iranian energy sales, which is funding the regime. And so you see Iran emboldened, and you see these proxy groups trying to draw the Israeli fighting forces in two directions, in the south and into the north. I mean, we should be backing Israel to the hilt. And it's not impossible, Maria, by the way, to say that intending to eliminate Hamas actually gives Israel more negotiating room with terrorists. That's what we learned when we were in office, because we established U.S. deterrence all over the world. And these regimes, watch each other. So you can't have this kind of interference in Israeli domestic politics. Biden has been very clear. He doesn't want to deal with Netanyahu. He wants him gone. And at the same time, pretend that we're tough on terror. It's just, it doesn't make any logical sense. Yeah. We need to back whoever is in power in Israel to eliminate a terrorist threat so Israelis can live in peace.
Yeah, it's very disturbing to see the White House's heavy hand on Israel's, handling of this war. Then you've got the Kremlin yesterday warning that Western nations supplying Ukraine with weapons to strike Russian territory will face retaliation. Putin was very adamant yesterday, saying earlier in the week also that Moscow could provide long-range weapons to its allies to hit Western targets in response. So the threats are many coming from Putin. He also would not rule out using nuclear weapons, Mary. Your reaction?
Yeah, because Putin is trying to deter us, Maria. That's what's going on.
That's called deterrence.
We're not deterring him.
Yeah.
We're not deterring him. You're seeing deterrence in action on the wrong side of the fight. And it's yet another reason why we should have armed Ukraine to the hilt at the beginning so that it would have been a short and quick victory for Kyiv. Instead, now this war is dragged out. You've had tens of thousands of people killed and maimed and brought across the border, and all kinds of war crimes happening. But more importantly for us, for our interests, which is something that the president rarely talks about, you have the threat of a wider war. And that's really the concern here, is that there could be an accident. Putin could get so emboldened that he decides to go into Moldova or he starts to make trouble in the Baltics. Our friends and allies in Eastern and Central Europe get this, but where President Biden is today in France, they talk a big game. Macron is, talking very hawkishly, but just like President Biden, that's for the French domestic audience because he's facing a threat from his political right. Yeah. So I fear it's a very dangerous time, and it's not a time to play domestic politics. National security shouldn't be a partisan thing, but we can't just speak in these lofty terms about democracy and not back it up with action. And give our friends and allies a reason to trust us and to do more themselves, which is ultimately what we want.
Especially during a time when the lines seem to be drawn in terms of the teams on the world stage. You've got China partnering with Russia, partnering with Iran, and the free world on the other side. Mary, talk a bit about China and its role in all of this.
Well, China, of course, is helping Russia prop up its economy. It's part of the reason why our sanctions haven't crushed the Russian economy in any significant way. You've seen China provide military equipment and materiel to Russia. You saw the UK defense minister call that out. Of course, the White House tried to roll that back and say, well, we're not so sure that's going on. Of course, it's going on. You see them help with sanctions evasion. They could be helping North Korea provide and transport certain weapons into Russia. So you're right, Maria. It's not a bilateral issue. It's not a Russia-Ukraine issue. That's not how the world works. We've talked about that before on your program. The world works in concert with each other. And this, as you called it, team, is an anti-free world team. China, right. Russia, Iran, North Korea. And we need to rally our allies. And by the way, Maria, that includes some non-democracies, like places like Vietnam, for instance, or Saudi Arabia, where they have values that are very different from ours. And we have to cooperate with them, just as we did back in World War II, to defeat this common enemy. And so that's the work that needs to be done right now at the State Department, the National Security Council. It's not as clear-cut as democracy versus autocracy. It's a muddier world than that. We need to be clear about our interests, clear about our values. We can stand up for both. We can get allies on our side. We can get them to contribute in important ways, which they should. President Trump was right about that. Our NATO allies don't do enough, and I think it's great that he's encouraging him again to do more. He's right to do so. Yeah. But we have to have consequences if they don't do that.
Yeah, all great points, Mary. Good to see you this morning. Thank you so much.